Good afternoon. Today, I would like to talk about two Pulitzer Prize-winning biographies, Malcolm X, A Life of Reinvention by Manning Marable, and Frederick Douglass, Prophet of Freedom by David W. Blaine. I read both of these biographies back-to-back last summer, and I found that there were some interesting parallels between Frederick Douglass and Malcolm X. As I was reading these two books, I thought to myself that both men were imprisoned. Frederick Douglass, obviously as a slave, and Malcolm X, who was imprisoned from 1946 to 1952. Both men joined an organization after escaping to freedom and being released from prison. Frederick Douglass joined the abolitionist group under William Lloyd Garrison, and Malcolm X joined the Nation of Islam. As both men became active in these organizations, the United States was undergoing tremendous change and conflict as the country moved towards a civil war in the 19th century and the civil rights movement a century later. Both men, through their unrivaled oratorical skills, became the celebrities for their respective organizations, quickly outshining their organization's founders, William Lloyd Garrison and Elijah Muhammad. As both men became more famous, their relationships with these groups became strained, which led them to eventually break from their organizations for greater personal autonomy. Especially for Malcolm X, who, upon his release from prison, it was right at the beginning of when the civil rights movement began to gain momentum. And Malcolm X, being the person that he was not going to sit by and be inactive during the civil rights struggle. Since the Nation of Islam promoted the idea that African Americans should not participate politically in the United States, nor should they vote, that meant that Malcolm X really was not able to take part in these events as he would have liked. And being the person that he was, would have really have been impossible for Malcolm X, with all of these tumultuous changes happening in the United States, to not be a part of it. Another similarity between the two men that I found is that both men had a strong religious faith, Christianity for Douglass and Islam for Malcolm X, which guided them through their struggles for greater rights and a higher standing of living for people of color. Both men traveled overseas and gained international fame. Frederick Douglass traveled to Europe, and Malcolm X traveled to the Middle East in the 1950s and in 1964 after he left the Nation of Islam. So I would quickly conclude by saying that despite living in separate eras and separate centuries, Frederick Douglass and Malcolm X did possess some of the same qualities and experiences as they fought to improve the lives of African Americans and people of color throughout the world. I hope that this quick presentation will stimulate your interest and that you will take the time to read these two landmark biographies. And I hope to see you at the Euclid Public Library someday again when we can all feel safe.